I'd like to thank all of the various sponsors as well who have shown their commitment to this celebration. I would also like to honor any city officials who are here, any clergy, any law enforcement, any first responders, and all the people who represent this great city of Hamilton. So this year we celebrate the first federal observance of Juneteenth. This is a monumental day in the history of the United States. Juneteenth has been long celebrated in some states, particularly in the South and in Texas, where it's a really big event and folks really come out and celebrate the progress of our country. But I would like to do some framing of what this holiday means. So what is the importance of this day? You know, what is the gravity of this moment? You know, this Juneteenth is a narrative of a very young America. One people, one nation that was both slave and slave owner bound together for a destiny of freedom that continues to evolve even to this day. So let's build the context for this. In 1861, we were a nation that was at war with itself. With over 1.5 million people dead, and perhaps hundreds of billions of dollars in expenses and losses, and still with 1/5 of Americans enslaved. You know, President Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. However, the country still was at war, and it was still cannibalizing on itself. And even on that day, less than 100,000 slaves were freed. Eventually, the U.S. Federal Army won the war based upon the surrender of the rebellion of the Confederacy, and at that point, millions of slaves were freed. But even after that date, the cruelty of slavery continued. Men and women were still physically forced to perform free labor, captive on plantations. Families continued to be brutalized and sold as chattel and separated. There are stories that perhaps the news of the victory of the North was slow in getting to the South. There are even stories that even the slave owners in the South knew that the North had won, but still held on to their slaves. The slave owners may have known that the slaves were free, but the slaves did not know that they were free. Oppression continued to yield its power and dominance in every aspect of their lives, but they did not know that they were free. They were imprisoned in the mind just as much they were imprisoned by the chain, and they did not know that they were free. Provisions were made, orders were given, but slaves and slave owners did not know that they were free. America did not know that it was free. So we fast forward this 150 years into America today. And we're starting to see some diversity in color, of gender, of ethnicity across all domains of society. But America still does not know that she is free. We'll have the most diverse election participation in American history, but we still plan to future disenfranchise their votes. America does not know that she is free. When minority groups still suffer disproportionately from many forms of disease, America still does not know that she is free. While white supremacy, encouraged by false narratives, continues to radicalize our fellow citizens, America does not know that it is free. It is within this narrative that U.S. Major General Gordon Granger was sent as a messenger to inform the slaves and the slave owners that America was indeed free. So General Gordon Granger, who was a New Yorker, known for great Civil War battles, was sent to Texas with only 2,000 federal troops to liberate Americans who were likely descendants of native to dozens of African, Caribbean, and South American people. So he read this General Order number 3 on June 19th, 1865. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. And the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. In Galveston, Texas, there was jubilation, there was celebration, there was disbelief with this notion of absolute equality of personal rights. This is freedom, regardless of color, heritage, socioeconomic status. My right to America is no less than your right to America. My right to live, to work, to raise a family free of tyranny, oppression, suppression are preserved in this General Order number 3, this order of absolute equality of personal rights. It also states that the former slave and slave owner, both Americans, now have a mission and a future that are intimately bound together. Our destinies are now synchronized. When I, as an ex-slave, hurt, inevitably you will hurt. When I prosper, ultimately we both prosper. My freedom, successes, and contributions set to create greatness for all of us. Let me show how great we can be together as equals. But it appears that with every American generation, Americans are infected with the virus of racism, fear, greed, and hatred that presents sick with symptoms of policies and laws that reveal the amnestic condition that America has forgotten that it is free. America, you see, often does not realize that it is free. But it is the burden of we, the people, to remind and reorient America of its freedom and its potential. We remind America that it is free with an experience of Bloody Sunday. We remind America that it is free with marches on Washington. We remind America that it is free with a Cheney, a Goodman, a Schwerner, an X, a King, and a Floyd. God has allowed the meekest and the weakest to unleash the power of millions, multicolored, multi-ethnic, unified Americans, even in death, to remind America that we are indeed free. We have had to remind America of this General Order number 3 of June 19th, 1865, the absolute equality of personal rights. So before I finish, I would like to make 3 points. The first point is that equality plus diversity equals strength. Equality plus diversity equals strength. We must remind America that institutional racism is a slow drain on the prosperity of all America. When we deny freedom of opportunity to one group, it reduces the economic growth of a nation Experts state that attempts to exclude, deny, or exploit American communities slow the American economy and increase government spending. Economists estimate that racism against people of color is costing white Americans $2,000 to $4,000 for every man, woman, and child. We all lose 4 to 6% of economic growth due to institutional racism. You see, by not lifting all Americans, white Americans are robbing themselves of prosperity. If you hold me back, we're all going to pay a price. It is cheaper to educate me than it is to criminalize me. Oppression is the unspoken tax that all of America pays. So Hamilton, as we grow and flourish, I want you to invest in us, to bring us all to the table. It is necessary and it needs to be celebrated. But we also know that holidays do not pay my bills, or put food on the table, or create generational wealth, or send my children to college. We must remind America that access to wealth and equity is freedom. Institutional racism is not simply a black problem, it is an American problem, and America must fix it. When minorities rise, all Americans rise. So we must remind them that America is indeed free. Number 2, I ask you kindly to win my vote and not to steal it. As the voter is slowly becoming more tan, black, and brown, America has reflexively tried. According to the Brenner Center of Justice, just 1 month ago, legislators introduced 389 bills for voter restrictions in 48 states. We cannot vote before church. We can't vote after church. I can't mandate enough voting machines. You have to limit my ability to vote by mail. And then ultimately, after I pass my vote, you try to disqualify my vote. My dollar and my vote are the strongest voices that I have. My vote affects my neighborhood, my wealth, my education, my opportunity, my prosperity, and it even affects my life expectancy. We must remind America that voting is the greatest expression of freedom. And again, our fates are bound together. Your effort to restrict my vote weakens our democracy. We must again remind America that she is free. And for my last point, we must teach the children. As a psychiatrist, I know that each family has an uncomfortable family history. Someone in the family tries to suppress the truth about something that happened in the family way back when, not knowing that if we were able to uncover that uncomfortable family history, we allow healing to take place. Even as great of a nation that we are, America has a very complicated family history. America's history is filled with both pain and victory, atrocities and corrections. America has enslaved, imprisoned, suppressed, and even massacred fellow Americans. However, there's also truth that Americans fight for each other. We seek the good for each other. We fight for the oppressed around the world, and we contribute to a greater good. And America has saved the world not once, but twice. But this is a contradictory narrative, but is the complete truth that must weigh on America's sickness or wellness today and into the years to come. It's been said repeatedly that if we do not know the mistakes of our past, we as a nation are doomed to repeat them. Teaching this narrative does not point fingers, but opens the hand of acceptance and understanding. It tightens the grip of our bound purpose as we walk together towards that more perfect union. Teaching America's full history to our children allows our future to understand that freedom is a right, but it is not free. And we together, of all colors, of all ethnicities, are the protectors of this absolute equality that General Granger read on Juneteenth, 1865.